video. One of the things I said at the beginning of the course is that there are a number of ways that introductory philosophy courses are taught, and that the way they did it at the University of Virginia, where you've got a bunch of overachievers there, right? You know, I mean, but not an easy school to get into, is they would have students in the intro course read and write papers on about half a dozen primary works in philosophy. In other words, what the philosopher themselves said. There are 2 Platonic dialogues. I think we did the Meno and the either the Apology or the Phaedo. Been a while. And then later we'll see we did Berkeley and utilitarianism. But one of the books that we had them read cover to cover was Descartes' Meditations, because it's only about 70 or 80 pages in translation. And it's there that he tries to set philosophy on the same kind of firm footing that mathematics is on. In other words, Descartes, the father of modern philosophy, as I began to say, didn't like philosophy as much as he liked mathematics, because he didn't like the fact that things were still in such an unsettled state in philosophy, that people were rehashing the same arguments over and over again. And so, now Descartes is a bachelor, although I think he fathered at least 1 or 2 illegitimate children in his lifetime. And Descartes is fairly well-to-do. He does not need a day, and does not have a day job, right? And so he's able to basically work from home and write on mathematics and philosophy and topics that interest him. Now, he would many times write in bed and stay in bed for a while, which, you know, as drafty as things are, I guess, even in France, you know, you could understand that. And also, there was a mini ice age back then. So at any rate, Descartes would often stay in bed, you know, really late. And, you know, he does his meditations kind of sitting alone at home, and he wants to do what we saw people do in the myth of the cave, sort through his own beliefs. But your book mentions Queen Christina of Sweden, and the way I heard it, your book's version is just slightly different, but I mean, Queen Christina, unlike, say, Queen Elizabeth in England, was not just a figurehead monarch. She really ran the state. And, you know, the way I heard it is that he was, he got a job later in life as the personal philosophy tutor to Queen Christina. But since she was a real monarch, she had a very busy schedule during the day, and the time she had for Descartes and discussing philosophy was usually between about 5 and 6 in the morning. Well, here's poor old Descartes. Number one, he's used to living in France, a lot warmer than Sweden. and also he's used to sleeping till noon, but now he has to get up with the chickens at 5 or in the morning, and apparently he caught a cold or something, and it just did him in, literally. Whatever he caught, he never recovered from. But Descartes was extraordinarily brilliant. Like I say, if you, like me, were made to take analytic geometry in high school, Descartes is the inventor of that. And of course, we still call coordinates on an XY axis Cartesian coordinates. Cartesian because it sounds a lot better than Descartesian, but Cartesian refers to Descartes, Cartesian coordinates. So, but at any rate, Descartes wants to try to set philosophy on the same sort of firm ground, both philosophy and scientific knowledge on the same sort of ground as mathematics, because he knows that in his own day people were not going back and questioning the basic postulates of Euclid in geometry. Now I know since then we have non-Euclidean geometries, but this was about 300 or 400 years after Descartes. So on the one hand, Descartes uses a skeptical method, and there are several. I mean, the name that I like best for his method is methodic doubt. I forget which one your book. In other words, he starts out using a lot of skeptical arguments, and some of these were already around, but some people call it methodological skepticism. Now, another name, and you may wonder, well, where do we come by this thing? Is hyperbolic doubt? Well, what do you do when you use hyperbole in English? You kind of, pardon?
Stretch the truth.
Yeah, kind of stretch it, or at least you overemphasize things to make a point. I mean, when Alfred North Whitehead said that the whole history of philosophy is basically a series of footnotes to Plato, well, I mean, he was a pretty smart guy himself. Helped Russell write the Principia Mathematica, which was a volume in mathematical logic that was over 1,000 pages long. I mean, he was basically overstating the case to make a point about, Plato's general importance in philosophy. So he was using hyperbole. So basically, you're going to see that this is a way out in left field type of doubt, but it's a systematic way of proceeding. And so Descartes wants to do really two things. He realizes that a lot of his beliefs just are not going to hold water. And he also realizes that a lot of false views have crept into philosophy during the Middle Ages and in its history. And so he thinks that philosophy needs to be put on a new footing, and the foundations have to be built from the ground up again. And this is one reason why we call him the father of modern philosophy. because he basically tried to do that. So one of the things he has to do, I remember when I had a summer job one summer that was a whole lot like work, helping people clearing land, and what they were doing was, it was kind of landscaping, and they were cutting the lower shrubbery to let the trees that they wanted stand, and we were helping to cart away and stuff that had been cut down. But and so this is kind of what he wants to do with philosophy, to kind of clear away the underbrush, get at what's really valuable and important. And so he says if he's accepted many false beliefs that are logically derived from them might also be doubtful. So you got to go to kind of the source, and we're going to see that he's not trying to end up a skeptic. He's starting out as a skeptic because he's looking for something. And what he's trying to look for, see, the first thing, as I said, he wants to weed out of philosophy a lot of false and indefensible beliefs and views. But he also wants to get to some beliefs, if he can, that have the same status as Euclid's axioms in geometry. In other words, if you had plane, and I don't even know to what extent they teach plane geometry across the board, but if you had plane geometry, you know that the whole system is built on, I think it's 4 or 5 axioms. And what you do is you derive the rest of the system from these 4 or 5 axioms using inference rules that'll take you from one truth to the other. But the axioms themselves are supposed to say, well, how do you know that the axioms are true? And the axioms, Euclid's axioms are things like things equal the same thing or equal to one another. The shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. And axioms themselves are supposed to be not only necessarily true, but their truth is supposed to be obvious, and the word often used is self-evident. They should be self-evidently true. In other words, the thought is that with the axioms that form the basis of your whole system, their truth is immediately perceived. In other words, all you have to do is understand the claim that the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, and you immediately perceive its truth. Or you immediately perceive the things equal to the same thing or equal to one another. In other words, if you have 3 lines, and these lines are equal, and this line is equal to this line, this line is equal to this line, then you know that these 2 are equal, right? And you just see this intuitively. So the idea is, in this or in any other axiomatic system, you start with truths that are so obviously true that they can't be doubted. And then, from there, you derive more complicated theorems and corollaries to theorems whose truth is not obvious. But you can show that they were true because you use justifiable steps in deriving them. So in an axiomatized system, then, everything stands on the axioms, and you derive the whole system from there. Now, So, in order to try to get at this firm basis, then, in order to try to get at least one self-evidently true, indubitable axiom, he says that he wants to sort through his current beliefs, and he doesn't have to, and start again from new foundations. Because we're going to see that basically he wants to get back everything he questioned at the beginning. So you say, well, what happened then? What have you done then if you've just gotten back the same beliefs you questioned at the beginning? Well, of course, his answer would be that now they're on a firm foundation of self-evident truths, you know. So, so he gets alone then in his room, and it's winter, and he's got a big fire going in like a fire. It's more a big stove than a fireplace, apparently. So he gets himself alone by himself in his easy chair, and he says, I want to question all my former beliefs and see if I can find any that are beyond doubt, and see if I can find the starting point for my philosophical system. Now, how many beliefs do we have, right? Did you ever try to count them one day? They're almost countless, right? But he says, he's not going to have to sort through all of them. Plus, for his purposes, he's searching for a truth that is beyond doubt. So he says, I'm not going to have to prove questionable beliefs I might have false. All I have to do is raise some legitimate doubt about them for me to kind of set them on the side for a while and say, well, those aren't beyond doubt. So he's going to withhold assent. And this is what skeptics do. They say, well, I'm not going to commit to saying that proposition, that statement is either true or false. I'm going to withhold assent. So he's not going to commit himself to any beliefs at this point which are not completely certain and so certain that they're beyond doubt. In other words, he's looking for a basis that's as, based on truths that are as self-evident as Euclid's axioms. And so he says, if I can raise a doubt about any belief, that's all I'm going to have to do to set it aside as if it were proved false, even if it's not proved false. And again, he doesn't think he needs to go through each belief individually. But what he thinks is, when he talks about basic principles, he says, basically, we can group our beliefs into groups. And there are some basic principles that we're committed to that govern a whole group of beliefs. So he says, rather than look at individual beliefs, I'm going to look at the principles that say that beliefs in this whole group or that whole group are reliable, and I'm going to see if I can raise a doubt about them. And the first principle he uses is the principle that basically has to do with beliefs based on what our five senses tell us. And again, after Descartes, this became a real problem for philosophy. In other words, Plato thought that the statement, you know, there's a table there, is true opinion, and it didn't have quite the status of a mathematical truth, but he thought that you know, we could basically trust our senses when they tell us there's a table there. And we're going to see that Descartes gets so far in his skeptical questioning that he questions fundamental beliefs, fundamental common sense beliefs, like there's a table in front of us. You know. So how does he do this? Well, we only have a few minutes. This might be a good place to pick it up with. But before I'm saying that, he knows that there are some beliefs, like you're walking on the beach in the morning and it's foggy, and you see something in the distance, because he knows that distant objects or maybe very small objects are things about which we can be mistaken. You know, you see something in the distance, you say, well, there's a seagull. And then you're walking closer and you wonder, well, why doesn't the seagull fly away? And finally you get close enough through the kind of haze and fog to see that it's not a seagull at all, but what you thought was a seagull was really an oddly shaped piece of driftwood. And so he knows that there are cases like this where our senses deceive us, right? And he also knows that, look, they knew about the old bent stick in water, you know, trick back then. You know, they knew about optical illusions where you put a straight stick in water and it appears to be bent, right? So we knew that there were other ways that our senses tended to play tricks on us. But then Descartes says other beliefs that I have, and this is the last slide, seem absolutely beyond doubt. Descartes says that I'm now sitting in this room by the fire, that I'm in my night clothes, that I'm really holding a piece of paper in my hand, and that I have hands and a body. I mean, those aren't dim, foggy beliefs like whether or not I see a seagull in the distance. He says, is there any way I could raise a doubt about them? Well, you know, look at the book, and I made this available too, and you'll see how he raises a doubt about even what appear to be such clear and indubitable beliefs as there's a table in front of me. So, okay, see, look, have a good weekend, and again, the curve is going to be about 10. I haven't figured out exactly what it is, you know, because I kind of want to see also what Essex did with the test, and so we'll see on Tuesday, and vote on Tuesday if you're registered in the state.
I need a copy of the oral presentation.
Okay. Yeah. I have a sort of a tear-off for this.
Is it on Blackboard?
It is on Blackboard,
Oh,
but
okay.
I'll give you a paper copy because I made it so you can tear off the bottom part and turn it back in. And I'm gonna, I guess, collect this next week. I'm gonna pass around a sort of sign-up sheet. We're really not under the gun in here as much because it's a small class, you know, to fit them all in. Yeah. So basically, the assignments there is basically to choose some small either small video clip that illustrates a philosophic point or something from a song, and introduce it, play the song or video clip or part of it, and then sort of tie things up at the end. So it's not even going to require that people be talking, for all that long.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
okay, yeah, take care.
Have a good weekend.
Yeah, same deal. But this is a